Hey guys, so React Apollo came out with a new component called subscription. At first I wasn't quite sure what the use of this was going to be, whether you combine it with the new query component or if it's something you kind of just use by yourself. Now, with further inspection of it, here's an example of how you would use it, and it looks like you kind of just use it off on its own and that you don't combine it with maybe the query component. And I'll show you in a second how you would add subscriptions to the query component. But what it looks like to me is a component where if you only care about the subscription part. So before this, if you want to do subscriptions with Apollo, what you'd have to do is you'd make a query and then you'd call subscribe to more and then you'd get updates. What this allows you to do is forget the query part and just subscribe to updates. So here I have a subscription, very simple, just new num, and I'm basically listening for the event where a new number is added. And then I get this data and then I wait. I'm waiting for it until the event fires, and when it does, I display it. Now how this works is by default data is null. So that's why you see me doing a little check here to see if it's null, and if so I do waiting ... And then every single time an event fires, it updates the data with a new number. So if we get an event, for example 5, new num will be equal to 5, and then we will transition to 6 if we get a new event. So we don't keep a history at all of previous events at all. If you wanted to, you could, like in the state for example, keep track of all the new ones, but I see this component really being something where you only care about the latest event that has happened. And this will make more sense when you see a demo of this. So compare this with how you can do it with the query component. So here's my query component right here. I have my query and then my subscription. So for my subscription is the same one as over there. My query gets an array of numbers. So my query, I'm fetching the array of numbers. Again, I'm getting loading data, and there's this subscribe to more. This is familiar if you used the higher order component before for GraphQL, or Apollo I mean. And it does the exact same thing, and you'll notice how it's not inside data either. So if loading, I'm returning null. Otherwise, I'm doing kind of an interesting thing right here. So usually what you'll do is you'll subscribe when a component mounts. So component will mount or component did mount. So if I want to keep it strictly without creating another component, there's not really a component did mount here, right? That I could call subscribe to more in. What I could do though is create a new component, like instead of returning this, maybe I return like my component, and then I pass my subscribe to more function in, like that. And that's a fine thing to do. And then in the component did mount of your component, you would call this function and subscribe. But what I did here is I check for this variable called unsubscribe. And if I have not subscribed, or if I have not, basically if it's null, I subscribe to more, and this is where I subscribe. So basically the first render that happens, I subscribe. And then here is just me calling the update query inside of here. So this is what to do when an event fires, and this is just merging it into the query. So I keep all my previous numbers and I add a number at the end. But as you can see here, you can do subscriptions with a query component or with the subscription component. The difference is with query, there's going to be a query fired before it. And this makes the most sense with an example. So here's my query component over here, and on the right here's my subscription component. So if I click this add number, it calls a mutation, which then will make an event fire, and we'll see a new number. So you'll notice there's some numbers by default over here, so 0 through 3, and that's because the query ran and I'm displaying them, mapping through them. But notice there's nothing here. But if I click add num, we see both a 4 added to the end and a 4 here. So that's what's happening. So both of them are able to listen for the event and get the subscription. But notice when we hit add num again. So over here we just have the latest number, which is 5. Whereas over here I have basically a history of all the numbers before this. And we can just keep doing this a couple times if we want to, and we can see okay, this is only the latest, and this one we get everything. So I think it really just comes down to use case, whether you just care about the newest subscription or newest event, or if you really want to keep all of them and have like a query. So I think they're both useful and they both have uses. I think 9 out of 10 times I'm going to be using this thing over here where I'm wanting to basically update my query in real time. Maybe this is like good for a dashboard or maybe a count where I just care about the latest of something. But yeah, so that's how the subscription component works, and that's how you can subscribe to more using the query component. So next I'll be checking out one of the new components. I think it's called Apollo Consumer. Is the last new component, or maybe there's one or two more new components out of Apollo that I'm going to be taking a look at. That's it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching.